everybody, and welcome to another edition of Fantasy Football. My name is Scott Morganoff, Motor City Madmouth, actually in the Motor City here at the extended stay out in Farmington Hills. So the Motor City Madmouth is back in the Motor City, joined by my esteemed colleagues, Ryan Skolrud from the Pacific Northwest. Hello, Ryan.
Good morning.
Yeah, I guess it is over there. And Alex out in Florida, my regular state. But I'm happy to be in my home state. Welcome back to the big show, Alex.
Thank you for having me. I can't quite say good morning. It's now good afternoon.
Oh, yeah, right.
It's early for me.
To the equation anyway. Hey, let's start it off with a little bit of humor. God only knows right now I can use it, as well as everybody around the country. All right, well, with that said, okay, this is our fantasy football broadcast. We have a couple days to go before they kick it off. And you know what, Ryan Skolrud, kick it off with all your insightful information.
Well, the news finally came down officially yesterday that the MRI on Joe Burrow's knee revealed more extensive damage than what they were hoping. It was revealed he has an ACL and MCL tear, plus a little bit of other structural damage in his knee. Looking at the timeline for this. A couple years ago when Carson Wentz tore his ACL, I want to say it was in week 10, ended up missing the first 2 weeks of the next season as well. This seems to be like a little bit more damage to the knee of Joe Burrow. So with that, I can see him missing into next year. I understand that everyone recovers differently. Everyone rehabs differently. But just due to the extent, it would not surprise me if he is not ready for the beginning of the 2021 NFL season. As far as kind of the fantasy implications of this, I talked about this on my podcast last night with my co-hosts, and we're kind of in agreement. This basically makes T. Higgins droppable. If you're going to have Ryan Finley as your starting quarterback, the only fantasy relevant wide receiver that you have is Tyler Boyd, because Finley likes doing the kind of the dink and dunk, dump off to the slot receiver type of throwing, and so he's really the only wide receiver, and it makes me wonder, do the Bengals officially now completely shut down Joe Mixon? I mean, the season is done. I mean, they weren't going to the playoffs or anything this year, but it was nice to try to see what they could get with Joe Burrow. And now with him out for the season, I can see them completely shutting down Joe Mixon for the rest of the season. So
that would make sense to me. Why bother further injury with a key core player? I'm with you, Ryan.
Moving on to the Bears, both Mitchell Trubisky and Nick Foles are still dealing with injuries. Nagy has not yet declared a starter, but admits a QB change could still happen. In terms of fantasy relevance for this, if it's Mitch Trubisky, everything I think stays the same for Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson will still get 10 to 11 targets a game, only 4 of which will actually be catchable. No matter which of those two guys is throwing to him. I think Darnell Mooney still gets targets. If anything, if they move from Nick Foles to Mitch Trubisky, I think Jimmy Graham loses targets, because Nick Foles has been more throwing to the tight ends, especially in the red zone. So I think that kind of drops Graham just a little bit if they do end up making the change there. So both Mark Ingram and J.K. Dobbins test positive for COVID-19 and are out against Pittsburgh for the Thanksgiving night game. Look at this. I mean, obviously, this makes Gus Edwards a priority grab for the waiver wire, which we'll go through tonight. I don't see Justice Hill honestly, I don't see Justice Hill doing a lot. He's kind of been, for me, a disappointment in fantasy over the last few years. And really, overall, Pittsburgh has played pretty well against the run all season. Really, the one game that they really got gashed was the last game against Baltimore. So, go ahead, Alex.
Um, Williams, the defensive tackle, also had COVID-19 related symptoms, and there will be no Calais Campbell due to a calf injury. So if you're playing Lamar Jackson, it's only because you're desperate this week for fantasy. And I don't believe Baltimore is a threat to Pittsburgh this week. They should go 11-0.
Yeah, I'm with you there. This I think basically knocking out a major part of the. I mean, you got the defense there, and then knocking out a major part of the offense with Ingram and Dobbins. It's going to have to force Lamar Jackson to pass, which, as we've seen this year, isn't necessarily the best formula for the Ravens. Christian McCaffrey is still considered week to week. He is already on most fantasy platforms been considered doubtful for this week. Makes me again wonder, they'll probably just wait until after the bye. I'm guessing this is a wait till after the bye. He'll be ready week 14 for fantasy playoffs. If those of you who drafted Christian McCaffrey are still going to make the playoffs. If you're in a situation like me where your first two draft picks were Christian McCaffrey and Austin Eckler,
Ow.
it doesn't matter how many moves you've made, you are likely not in the playoffs. I am floating at 500, and scored the least amount of points in the league because of my two biggest weapons, who were set for great years, both go on IR for extended periods of time. So, speaking of IR, Seahawks placed Greg Olsen on injured reserve. My opinion is this ends his career, with all the foot and ankle injuries that he has had. This was a non-contact injury. He took 2 steps off the line and tore the plantar fascia tendon in his foot. So,
he's done.
Yeah, I think that this ends his career. This is it for him. Solid career. I was hoping that he would have a decent year with the Seahawks, and when he was involved, he was good. But the Seahawks just haven't involved the tight end as much this year as they have in the past. That, and they've had like 8 tight ends on the roster and given each one like 3 or 4 snaps each game. So it's just been a carousel in terms of who's actually getting the production at tight end.
Shameless plug. I see you. I see what you did there.
To go along with that, in a corresponding move, the Seahawks signed Snacks Harrison officially off their practice squad. 2 teams actually tried to sign him, which kind of off the Seahawks practice squad, which kind of forced them to make this move to keep Snacks. One of them, I believe, was the Green Bay Packers, and I can't remember who the second team was. So,
wasn't the biggest issue that the Seattle Seahawks had was getting a pass rush because they couldn't stop a nosebleed? Now with the additions of Carlos Dunlap and Snacks Harrison, they won't have the worst defense. That will definitely belong to the Dallas Cowboys. Seattle sneakily has made a lot of good moves and still has a run for a first-round bye.
Yeah, the major memes that are going up around here in Seattle have to do with Carlos Dunlap. In 3 games, has as many sacks as Jadeveon Clowney did all last season. Now I understand. Jadeveon Clowney was a disruptor in turn, though he may not have gotten the sacks. That's never been his MO as a football player. He's been more of a run stopper, getting about, I think the most amount of sacks he's ever had in a season was 9.5. And so just seeing a pure pass rusher, and then having someone like Snacks Harrison who can just eat up blocks in the middle, definitely it'll be interesting to see what the defense for the Seahawks can do moving forward. And now it helps. They have the easiest schedule moving forward. They now face their remaining games are Philadelphia, this next week on Monday Night Football. Then
Meh.
they play Washington.
Meh.
Then they play the Jets. Yeah, this is their remaining schedule. I think they play the Giants, and then I think the last game of the season is at home against the Rams, or something like that. So, or no, they get the Rams at home, and then one game, and then against San Francisco.
San Francisco 49ers. With Jimmy, but no Kittle.
Yeah. So the Seahawks have a pretty easy schedule going down the rest of the way. Jets rookie running back LaMichael Pirine likely out at least a few weeks with a high ankle. Again, this is another one that I discussed with my co-host last night, that this is another one where they may shut him down for the season. Again, the team isn't looking good. They're still having to deal with Joe Flacco as their quarterback because Sam Darnold can't get healthy. And
I feel sorry for Frank Gore.
Seriously.
Yeah, I heard that he doesn't want to go out 0-16, and unfortunately, Adrian Peterson's in the same predicament with the Lions being pretty poor. But at least Frank Gore is saying, please, whatever it is, I don't want to go out 0-16 in it. Tell you what, and we're going to get to the Jets and the Dolphins a little bit later. But go ahead, Ryan.
So I can see with them seeing a little bit in LaMichael Pirine. I mean, I would have liked to have seen him get a lot more work this year. I understand Frank Gore is Frank Gore, but you need the Jets need to see what they have for the future, and they just, in my opinion, didn't really. In a lot of cases, not that they have much for the future except for draft picks at this point.
Right.
I would have liked to have seen LaMichael Pirine get a little more work this year, but Adam Thielen is now on the COVID list, so a little bit of a bump to Justin Jefferson for this next week. And reports are coming out that Austin Eckler, could be returning soon. You got to love the Twitter hype videos of guys squatting and running forward but not making any cuts. So we'll see. I think he's another one that will be back in time for the fantasy playoffs, and that's about it.
I just want to say a little tidbit about the Chargers. I love the fact that I have Keenan Allen in a couple of leagues, and I love the 16 catches. What I don't like is the fact that the Jets were able to play close to the Chargers, and the Chargers only win 34-28. Chargers defense is soft. And they scored a touchdown to make it even worse.
Yeah, the Chargers defense has been less than stellar. I understand they've dealt with a couple injuries in their secondary as well, but
Derwin James.
Derwin James, because they have Chris Harris as well, who's been off and on injured the entire season. And so they've been dealing with injuries there. Honestly, the best part about the Chargers this year is watching Justin Herbert. And as a Washington Husky fan, I hate saying that about an Oregon Duck, but Herbert has been phenomenal, and I've loved the fact that I've been able to use him on my fantasy team this year. He's been keeping one of my teams, afloat and at least close to a playoff berth. So.
Well, I've got to mention this little tidbit that I just read moments ago about another former Oregon Duck. Joey Harrington said the highlight of his career was beating the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving. Well done, Joey. It's not like there were many highlights in your career anyways, even though you got that win against the Miami Dolphins, with the Miami Dolphins against the Lions. So be it, Joey. And I realized that he was in a very difficult situation, going through a few head coaches and offensive coordinators, which is really a sign of trouble for any young quarterback. But really, there was some underperformance issues with Joey Harrington, and the track record for Oregon Duck quarterbacks hasn't been overly that great through the years. I believe Achilles Smith came from there as well, didn't he?
Correct. Yes, he did.
So, Ducks don't necessarily quack in the NFL, pun intended.
All right, that's it for my notes.
Okay, let me go over a couple things. Kudos to Alex. Nailed it. Indianapolis beat Green Bay 34-31, much to the dismay of a lot of our Packer fans. Okay, but Alex, you got to I have a policy that you give credit where it's due on this broadcast. So yes, Alex, Indianapolis has the NFC North 4-game sweep. Okay, Alex, good stuff. All right, give yourself a bow, whatever you want to do. This, whatever, blah blah blah, blah blah blah. Okay, there you go. That grin is good enough. All right. Who saw the Denver Broncos beating the Miami Dolphins 13 over, and Ryan Fitzpatrick taking over for Tua in that football game? Didn't see it. Maybe Tua was reading too many headlines. Guess what, Tua? You have to play every week. Ryan Fitzpatrick got to play, so add a few more yards to that interesting, illustrious Harvard career. And the Houston Texans 27-20 win over the New England Patriots at home. Who would have saw that? My goodness, couple of good specials. Why am I bringing these games up? Because we're going to be talking about these very few teams. All right? Ready to break down some football games?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Texans 3-7, Detroit Lions 4-6, and how ugly did it get for Matt Patricia? Now that I'm back here in the Motor City, oh my goodness, Matt Patricia has been asked about his job security more times than you can imagine, and all he says is, I'm just taking the old Belichick Kool-Aid. I'm just preparing for the Texans. I'm preparing for the next opponent. Don't want to hear about it. In a few weeks, they won't have to hear about it. But who do you have in this game? Houston Texans against the Detroit Lions. Alex, lead it off.
I love the fact that Chuck E. Cheese is getting the recognition that he deserves. Before the season started, I had Matt Patricia as one of my top 5 coaches to get fired. Here's what's funny. My number 1 was Bob. He's gone. My number 2 was Dan Quinn. He's gone. My number 4 was Mike Zimmer. He has a chance of being gone. You know who number 3 was? That's right, Chuck E. Cheese himself, Matt Patricia. You're here to tell me that 40 yards rushing is all you could do against the Carolina Panthers? You had a total of less than 200 yards, actually 184 yards total offense against the Carolina Panthers, who were blown out against Tampa Bay 46-23 the week earlier. A horrible game from Matthew Stafford. And you only managed that many yards from scrimmage? No DeAndre Swift, but Adrian Peterson had 18 yards rushing. And now you're going against the Houston Texans, who, 1, Deshaun Watson trucked Devin McCourty. 2, threw for 344 yards and 3 touchdowns. And 3, has a stable of backs. This one's simple. I got Houston.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think there's no other way to go with on this one other than going with Houston. Just taking the fantasy perspective, these two teams are the 2 worst teams in terms of giving up fantasy points to the running backs. Both of them have running backs that have the Houston Texans have David Johnson who's on IR, so they're dealing with Duke Johnson as their starting running back right now. Detroit Lions with DeAndre Swift out this last week with a concussion. Still haven't heard anything about how he's doing with that. So it could be again a Kerryon Johnson and Adrian Peterson for Detroit. So honestly, the Detroit Lions defense has been horrible. They haven't been able to put up really anything on offense. The Houston Texans are starting to show a little bit of life in that pass offense. It was just kind of back and forth all through the season. So, I've got to go with the Houston Texans in this game over the Detroit Lions.
As much as it pains me to say this, things are really bad in Detroit. I'm going to go with the Texans to pull off the upset against the Lions too.
Is that an upset? Is that really an upset?
It's upsetting for me to have to make the prediction. Doesn't mean I'm upset. I'm leading with my heart, not my head.
Good clarification.
I don't know. Things are just really rough right now. I mean, the Lions just got blitzed and blanked in Carolina, and they were just simply flat. All right, so we have a unanimous here with the Houston Texans beating the Lions. We'll go to the Washington football team against the Dallas Cowboys. Both teams enter the contest 3-7. Alex Smith against Andy Dalton for a division title.
Ugh.
Ugh. Okay. Three-way tie for second place in the NFC least. That tie is the only thing saving Philadelphia right now. With that being said, the loser of this game is out of contention. And here's why. Dallas already has one loss to Philadelphia. If they lose twice to Washington, the best they can hope for in the division is 3-3. That won't get it done. Now, Washington on the opposite end has two losses to New York, but they've already beaten Philly and they've already beaten Dallas. So they have the inside track on winning this division. I believe Montez Sweat and Chase Young need to come up with their own clone line. Young Sweat or maybe Predator Heat, because you can smell them coming. They've had sacks in each game they've played this year. As a matter of fact, between Settle, Kerrigan, Moreland, and Williams, they had 4 sacks on Sunday. Pass rush matters. Antonio Gibson, the Swiss Army knife, is an amazing running back who actually can slide out in the wide receiver. Now, Alex Smith is not going to scare you. He only had 166 yards last game, but in the game that they lost, he threw for 390. In every way, shape, and form, not even mentioning COVID, that could have been an outbreak for the Dallas Cowboys this Tuesday, I have the Washington football team. Outclassed, outmaneuvered, outcoached.
Yeah, for me, it's really a matter of the defenses, and the Cowboys' defense is horrible. The Washington defense has played much better this year, though they've obviously had their struggles. But with the Cowboys' offensive line still in shambles, yeah, they got the win this last week, but who are they playing? Playing Minnesota, who has struggled, to stop anyone as well. So I think that I'm definitely with Washington with you on this one. Haven't found any disagreements yet. We need to work on that. No, so I mean, all the points you made are fantastic. I mean, and put in Terry McLaurin and what he can do to this Dallas Cowboys secondary. And then you've got, like you said, Antonio Gibson, and then J.D. McKissick catching the ball out of the backfield. They the Washington has the weapons that Dallas. I mean, Dallas has them, but Dallas's defense has a harder time stopping anyone.
Ryan, I have a very disgusting stat that you may not like, but it's true.
Okay.
Through their first 24 games, Terry McLaurin has more receiving yards than Jerry Rice.
I like that.
I do too. Well, so all right. So both you guys are going with Washington, correct?
Yes.
And
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
There's a national story on Alex Smith and the whole, and everybody on Thanksgiving when you're looking for great stories. Alex Smith is definitely one of them. So I'll give the Washington football team the nod as well to beat Dallas. I mean, with all due respect, Andy Dalton did a pretty good job against the Vikings, but I still like Alex Smith. I'm riding the sentimental part here, and I'm going with the Washington football team to win again in a very winnable division. If Philadelphia trips up anywhere along the lines, who would have thought that Ron Rivera and the Washington football team could indeed have a chance at this thing? So I'm going Washington as well. All right, the Baltimore Ravens 6-4, Pittsburgh Steelers 10-0.
Well, I mean, we talked about this a little bit in the news rundown. I really don't see the Steelers losing this with the Ravens having the COVID outbreak, missing weapons. The Steelers offense has really been getting going the last few weeks. Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, getting those two guys involved. I mean, even Eric Ebron has been getting involved as a tight end, scoring touchdowns. So I really don't see the Ravens with how they have been able to collapse when it seems like they've got games won, like they did last week against the Titans. and letting the Titans back in to win it in overtime. I've got to go with the Steelers.
Boy, oh boy, how the mighty have fallen. Baltimore was the talk of the NFL last year. Now, due to the fact that they don't have a wide receiver that you could trust, their leading receiver is a tight end who's constantly getting double teamed. The running game has been almost non existent, and now you got to go to the second third string behind Lamar Jackson to Mr. Gus the Bus Edwards for running game. I saw Pittsburgh up front close and in person. Pick your poison when it comes to this wide receiver core. Deontay Johnson had 12 catches for 111 yards. He had more receptions than Jake Luton, the quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars, had completions. Chase Claypool, 4 catches, 59 yards, touchdown. 10 touchdowns, 10 games, 8 receiving, 2 rushing. Yeah, he's a problem. It was Juju Smith-Schuster's birthday. He only had a couple of grabs. He wasn't really important on Sunday. They didn't need him on Sunday. It's Thanksgiving. I'm thinking he's going to have a breakout performance. Don't forget about James Washington. He's got 21 receptions on the season, and he's the best 4th wide receiver you could probably have. Oh, and by the way, James Conner. He had 3 games where he had less than 100 yards and totaled 105 yards between Baltimore, Dallas, and Cincinnati. Well, guess what? He had 94 yards rushing and receiving total against Jacksonville. So he finally woke up and got out of his slump. Eric Ebron is beasting in the middle, is a mismatch for linebackers. There'll be no Calais Campbell. There'll be no Williams. They're already without Mr. Stanley, so there'll be a lack of protection against TJ Watt and them boys. Minka Fitzpatrick had 2 picks. Tremaine Edmonds had 2 picks, and he's definitely not a ball hawk. It's on prime time, and it's in Pittsburgh. For the love of God, Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, I don't normally know how to usually give brief responses, but in Ben, we trust. In Eric Ebron, we trust. In that running game, we trust. In Mike Tomlin, we trust. The Pittsburgh Steelers are going to let the nation know how good they really are. No problem with the Ravens. All right, in a matchup that I'm familiar with, a divisional matchup, the NFC North, you have the Chicago Bears against the Green Bay Packers. How mad are the Packers after losing to the Indianapolis Colts? What kind of a state of mind is Marcus Valdes-Scantling? Is he going to get over his Indianapolis situation and try to get angry against the arch rival Bears? All right, Ryan.
Here's the thing. I mean, the Bears defense has played tough against good teams. Let's not forget that they shut down the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but I think that they've been shown to have some cracks on offense. I still think that the Packers are the better overall team because they can put up points. I'm going with the Packers in this one. I don't trust either one of the quarterbacks for the Bears to get anything done. They haven't really had much of a running game. I mean, I have a hard time trusting Cordarrelle Patterson returning kicks, let alone having him as the starting running back. So for me, I'm going with the Packers on this one. I think it's going to be a pretty tightly contested game. I think that the Bears defense is probably going to make some decent stops, but I still think in the end, Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams get this done.
Marcus Valdes-Scantling was threatened and given death threats by Green Bay Packer fans and faithful because he fumbled the ball against the Indianapolis Colts. Last time I checked, Green Bay was up 14 points before the half. Last time I checked, Aaron Rodgers was still the quarterback, and Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams were on the field as well. Last time I checked, the Indianapolis Colts rounded out a game and outscored Green Bay 20-3. So what happened to Marcus Valdes-Scantling is a shame, and they should be ashamed of themselves. Now, on to Sunday's game. This one hurts. I'm originally from Chicago. and Chicago as a Green Bay problem. I don't trust Nick Foles. I trust Mitch Trubisky less than I trust Nick Foles. Uh, Montgomery, where are you? Where have you been? And even if you show up, will Matt Nagy use you? Now, that was a cheap shot you did with Cordell Patterson because he does have 8 punt and returns for touchdowns. So he's legit, but I don't want to see him at running back. I completely agree with you. I think Allen Robinson is mad that he took that money because he doesn't want to be in Chicago. There's so many other people who could use his services. And that defense is a Lamborghini. That offense is dumpster juice. I have Green Bay.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. This is where the age thing comes into play for me. When you're a GOAT, and I don't mean the greatest of all time in Green Bay, but a literal GOAT. Ask Dan Devine if something bad goes wrong in Green Bay. He had his dog killed out in Green Bay. So you think what happened to Marcus Valdez-Scantling was bad, talk to Dan Devine and he'll tell you about the dog that didn't have any bark. Okay, so I do believe that Green Bay bounces back. It's a very close contest. I really also believe, though, that Chicago should ditch the Nick Foles experiment, put Mitch Trubisky out for the rest of the year. He's more mobile anyways. He's not a sitting duck in the pocket like Nick Foles, and see what you have the rest of the year with Mitch Trubisky. That's what I think they should do. But Green Bay does win it narrowly in this football game. I think Marcus Valdez-Scantling comes out humbled by the whole situation. And the Packers need to win these football games if all roads lead to Lambeau Field. Margin of error with one team getting a bye is so narrow. And when you're looking at the Seattle Seahawks, one of the teams you're fighting up against, Green Bay needs to win. And I don't see them losing 2 in a row. All right, let's go on to the Tennessee Titans and the Indianapolis Colts. Both of these two teams are 7-3.
This game's for the division. AFC South is getting nasty, and there is no love lost. Houston has won this division for the last 5 years. Yes. And the 1 year that they didn't win it, Indianapolis won it. Andrew Luck's not coming through that door. You know a funny stat? Houston, Indianapolis, Tennessee's been there 3 of the last 5 years as well. This is Tennessee's time. I believe Tennessee is going to try to run the ball down this very hurt defensive core of the Indianapolis Colts. Derrick Henry is hitting their stride, and Tannehill does just enough to win the game. I like Mike Vrabel's coaching. He's in their ear. He has their heart, and he knows that he needs to beat Frank White in order to get key position in the playoffs. 3 seed, 4 seed. They might just play each other again, being the number 4 and number 5 team due to record. But I got a feeling Tennessee's going to pull this one out.
Yeah, this is one of those ones where it's a coin flip for me. I like Tennessee, and I like their offense and what they can get going, because once you get Derrick Henry going, Ryan Tannehill really starts going. The Indianapolis defense, for the most part, has been just really lights out this year. But it's in terms of Derrick Henry, he has his best games in division. And so I like what Derrick Henry can do in this game, but I think I'm still going with Indianapolis. I think we finally found some disagreement, Alex. And again, I'm not pulling up. This is more of a gut feeling for me. It's not so much in the stats. I think that Phillip Rivers can get enough done against this offense. The Titans defense has really struggled pretty much all year. Take the last 5 weeks, they're giving up well above average points against running backs, above average points against quarterbacks. And I just looking at what Michael Pittman has been doing, I like what he can do against this defense. So for me, I'm actually going Indianapolis in this one and trusting the Indianapolis Colts defense to for the most part hold hold Tennessee in check, though I still think that Derrick Henry has a really good game.
You know
Hey
what?
guys, hey guys, I apologize for interrupting. I just got some news. Marcus Paul died at Dallas Cowboys practice today.
Oof.
Oof. Wow.
So
Breaking
that's
news,
so
folks.
that's what the medical emergency was.
Breaking news. Okay. All right. Let me give you my prediction before we give a moment of silence. Okay, well, that's as close of a moment as we're going to get here. At any rate, I'm going to go along with you, Ryan. I believe the Indianapolis Colts are going to win this football game too. Phillip Rivers is on a mission to get the Colts to the playoffs. Leaving the Chargers last year, he'd like to think he has a playoff appearance or two left. So I'm with you all the way. I like the Colts in this one as well. All right, let's talk about the Arizona Cardinals 6-4 against the New England Patriots 4-6. I actually thought the Patriots would be 5-5, but the Houston Texans had something to say about it. But you have Kyler Murray and Cam Newton playing in frigid temperatures up in New England. I don't know how this will be an interesting battle here. I never know what Kool-Aid to break with the. All right, when I think the Arizona Cardinals are on a roll, they're not on a roll. So you want to call it the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. What matchups show up? Is there a miracle for DeAndre Hopkins over in Foxborough? I don't know. All right, who wants to take this one?
Go ahead, Alex.
Thank you. I have no idea why Cam Newton wants to dress up like the guy that used to climb the hill for The Price is Right.
You saw that
That
meme
was
too.
horrible. That wasn't, oh yeah, I hear it in my head right now. Damiere Byrd should not be your best fantasy relevant wide receiver over Julian Edelman and N'Keal Harry. You're going to the toaster. Arizona's a little bit upset because after they pulled off the miracle against Buffalo, they lose to a division rival. And who better to take out their frustration than a team that is A, unable to stop the run, and B, only has one good corner. You have DeAndre Hopkins and Larry Fitzgerald. I'm calling it. Larry Fitzgerald's going to get his first touchdown this Sunday. You can quote me on that. Kyler Murray, faster than anybody else on that team on defense. They need to keep pace with the Rams and Seattle. In every way, shape, and form, I got Arizona.
I think I got to agree with you again. I hate saying it because I hate predicting that division rivals are going to win as a Seahawks fan. But the Arizona Cardinals have struggled a little bit in terms of what they give up to quarterbacks and wide receivers, but have been pretty solid against running backs. And in terms of the New England offense, it seems like they just don't have any consistency in their game planning. I mean, I couldn't understand this last week how they had Damian Harris breaking off chunk plays against Houston, and then don't give him any more carries for like 2.5 quarters. They're going to Rex Burkhead. They're going to. I mean, and I understand Rex Burkhead's been really solid before he tore his ACL this on Sunday. But just the way that they have utilized their running backs, and Cam Newton, throwing for, however many yards it was, having a decent passing game for the first time since going up against Seattle. I don't know. There just does not seem to be a whole lot of cohesion on that New England Patriots offense. Their defense has been struggling, very middle of the road all year. And so, yeah, I'm with you. I think the Arizona Cardinals take this game because even if Gilmore is on Hopkins the entire game, you still have, like you said, Larry Fitzgerald. You still have Christian Kirk, who has, for the most part, been pretty decent as the number 2 wide receiver in this offense. And the Arizona offense has put up more yards than anyone else this year. So they have a decent running game. They can utilize both Chase Edmonds and Kenny Drake out of the backfield. Kyler Murray can run the ball as well. I have to go with Arizona.
All right, well, since I'm doing this broadcast from my hometown in the Motor City, okay, I used to go to elementary school right down the road. There's a thing called boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl, okay. What does that have to do with it? It has everything because the Arizona Cardinals win, lose, okay? So they lost last week, so I'll say they win this week. And the New England Patriots, to me, look like nothing more than a circus. Now, right down the road here on the Lodge Freeway and 696, they used to have that place called the Shrine Circus. So what we had over there, over at the Michigan State Fairgrounds, were a bunch of clowns. And the way Cam Newton dresses, he's a big clown. We'll see where he winds up next year. Going with the Arizona Cardinals. So nothing like the good old days. Boy, girl, Arizona Cardinals will win. I'll look like an idiot next week here in this very city. Okay, so go ahead, Cardinals. Make me look bad again. But if you do, at least you're making the two of us look bad as well. Miami Dolphins 6-4, New York Jets 0-10. Why would I even bring this football game in? Because the Miami Dolphins don't want to be the team that gives the New York Jets an opportunity to win a game. And considering the way the Dolphins laid an egg out in the Mile High City, will they lay one in the Big Apple against Joe Flacco, Frank Gore, for whom, by the way, played for the Miami Dolphins recently? I don't know.
I mean, even for me, even with some of the struggles that the Dolphins have had offensively the last couple of weeks, even if it's Ryan Fitzgerald going up against the Jets, I really think that the Dolphins win this game. The Jets just look awful. And really, I mean, the quote-unquote strength of the Jets offense, and I use that term very, very loosely, has been what little bit they've been able to get in the passing game, deep balls to Brashad Perriman. The Dolphins have a decent secondary, and I just don't see a ton of work getting through for the Jets against this Dolphins secondary. I've got to go with the Dolphins.
Dolphins were going to beat the Broncos until they got high. As far as I'm concerned, we shouldn't even mention the Jets. I mean, they are the first team eliminated from playoff competition, and we're barely in week 12. That's how bad the Jets are. I believe Miami's backups could beat the Jets. I believe wholeheartedly that Ryan, myself, and the UCF Knights could probably beat the Jets. The Jets are like the ugly ex-girlfriend that makes you change your number. There's no reason why we should even be talking about the Jets. I have Miami.
Well, we're talking about it because it's a trap game, and that's the only reason I brought it up. But we had that Denver Mile High. I'm going with Miami as well. I think Tua got a little bit of self-evaluation, knowing that he had to sit behind Ryan Fitzpatrick during the second half of the Broncos game. So I don't see the Miami Dolphins giving the New York Jets their first win at all. It's a clean sweep here, Miami Dolphins all the way in the Big Apple. All right, the New Orleans Saints against those Denver Broncos. The Saints are 8-2. The Broncos 4-6. Taysom Hill was under center. How do you guys like the way that Taysom Hill played as a starting quarterback?
I think he is.
I thought he was.
I'm going to say he's good for fantasy. He's not a great football quarterback. That's kind of that's my. I think he's good for Michael Thomas. Not so great for Alvin Kamara in terms of fantasy production.
He was erratic. He had happy feet the first half, settled down a little bit, was vulturing touchdowns away from Alvin Kamara. I agree. However, he was hitting Michael Thomas. Whenever you have a quarterback who throws the ball that looks more like a punt, that can't be good. I'm glad Emmanuel Sanders caught it, but wow. Look, Atlanta, Denver, Philly, Atlanta. So if you were ever going to experiment and have a tight end dash quarterback be your starting quarterback, it would be now. And with the way that the defense is playing, it really doesn't matter. I got the Saints.
Yeah, I'll go with the Saints too. I mean, you have to go with them. I realize the Miami Dolphins came in a little flat, but the Saints are an awfully good football team. And, Alvin Kamara and the people and the weapons you just mentioned, Alex, with all due respect, I don't see another letdown in the Mile High City. I think the Broncos were fortunate to beat the Dolphins, but no, the Saints go marching into Denver with a win. And I'd say a rather convincing win. They'll go to 9-2 and they'll look good doing it. Final game, Kansas City Chiefs 9-1 against the Tampa Bay Bucks 7-4. Tom Brady's arm strength came into question. I did see bits and pieces of last night's game. And I'll tell you what, if there's ever a guy who showed some age and his ability to not get the football downfield, I really truly believe that I'm not drinking the Tom Brady Kool-Aid anymore. And they keep losing on national TV. So, with all due respect, Tom, I'm glad that you're a University of Michigan alumni, okay, and you've won 6 Super Bowls for the all-time winningest football program, but you're not playing in the Super Bowl in Tampa. I'll lead off with this one. I think the Kansas City Chiefs go marching into Tampa, and they're going to rout the Buccaneers.
May I, Ryan?
Go ahead.
May I?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I've covered this team for quite some time. My alter ego, Fantasy and Flavors, published something last night. I'm not worried about fanboy sites because they only cover one team. The Florida Sun covers all Florida teams. So let me give you my fair assessment of what I saw last night. The Rams didn't require a sack because they got pass pressure and rush pressure from everywhere. The offensive coordinator and the offensive line should be slapped. You can't have only 42 yards and abandon the rushing game against the upper echelon teams in the NFC. Brady is old. Father Time is undefeated. Right. But when you go 1 of 9 trying to pass more than 15 yards, that's a reflection on you, Brady, not the offensive line. Boy. Your defense is cinnamon toast crunch. You are great against the run. You guys can't stop a cold. Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods clowned you guys last night. Cooper Kupp had 9 catches and 109 yards at the half. He finished with 11 catches for 145 yards. Fantasy points. Oh, you got Robert Woods? 12 catches, 130 yards, and a touchdown. Fantasy points. You guys can't cover out in the flat because the linebacker couldn't keep up with Van Jefferson, who only had 1 catch last night. Oh, and better yet, they decided to do the exact same play with Cam Akers. Now you got a Seminole and a Gator making the linebackers look silly in Raymond James Stadium. 1 catch apiece, they each get a touchdown. Tampa Bay in no way, shape, and form is ready for the smoke known as the Kansas City Chiefs. You got the best tight end in football in Travis Kelce. There will be a cheetah loose on the field in Raymond James Stadium. Oh, and by the way, there's no love lost between Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. Still waters run deep. And we remember the nut job that happened a couple of years ago when Brady got all the calls against Kansas City. Well, now the shoe's on the other foot, and Brady's in a retirement home known as Florida. Look for Kansas City to come out and just score and score often. And as far as the bend but don't break defense of Kansas City, I think they're going to be ball hawking because Brady is not the same Brady.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I really think I think that Brady's age is showing. Going up against a couple weeks ago against Carolina, the Carolina defense just wasn't up for that game, to be completely honest. Looking at overall stats for the year, the Buccaneers defense has been good overall. The problem is the recent trend. Just fantasy points tend to show what's going on lately. And overall, on the season, Tampa Bay, yes, is like the 4th best against quarterbacks, the 2nd best against the run in terms of giving up fantasy points. fourth best against wide receivers. But if you look at what's happened over the last few weeks, I think it's over the last 5 weeks, Tampa Bay gives up to quarterbacks almost 4 fantasy points above average to quarterbacks, 6.5 points below average to running backs. So they're still doing a good job of stopping the run game. But 4.5 points above average to wide receivers, 3 points above average to tight ends. That tells me that Travis Kelce's going to eat, Tyreek Hill's going to eat, Patrick Mahomes is going to eat. Maybe Clyde Edwards-Helaire doesn't have as many yards. Maybe he catches something out of the backfield instead and gets a touchdown. The Kansas City defense has been holding everyone to their average scores over the last 5 weeks. Really not a whole lot of variance right there in terms of what they've been doing. Other than with wide receivers, they've been keeping them about 4 points under fantasy projections. So I've got to go with the youth and the speed of and the arm strength of Kansas City over Tampa Bay.
When I look at this game and put it in perspective, it almost reminds me of what Tampa Bay getting hammered by New Orleans Saints. I see that more in this football game as well. And, when Joe Montana left San Francisco to go to Kansas City, even though he didn't get to a Super Bowl, he still played at a high level. And Tom Brady's playing at a fairly high level, but for some reason or another, when you go to a different team in the twilight of your career, it just doesn't feel right. And I think that's what you're looking at down in Tampa for sure. So, it's not going to look good for the Bucs. It just isn't. So, any closing?
One last tidbit.
Sure.
If they had the best record, because they're not going to win the division, New Orleans has that wrapped up.
Right.
They desperately needed that 5th seed so that way they could play the NFC least.
Right.
Losing this game before their bye week puts them in trouble because you don't want to land that 6th seed. Pick your poison, Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. I don't think they want to play either of those quarterbacks. So Tampa, it's 9-1-1, and I think they're starting to get a little bit salty because they had high expectations. But if they knew anything about football, they would know that never, ever has a team host and play in the Super Bowl.
And it's not going to happen this year. Just as much as it sounded good, all the weapons you've added from Leonard Fournette, Rob Gronkowski, Antonio Brown, it doesn't make any difference. Doesn't matter. They're just not.
Talent does not equate to victories.
Exactly. Thank you. All right. So, you guys, anybody have any closing thoughts?
For me, closing thought for me, happy Thanksgiving week. Enjoy watching some football on Thanksgiving. Enjoy whether it's time with family or maybe, if you're estranged from family, enjoy time with friends. Take some time to just relax this week. We have fun talking about football, talking about fantasy football. Take some time, enjoy. Here, my family traditions: respect the turkey for the next couple days. You can start playing Christmas music as soon as Thanksgiving dinner is over. Then it's officially Christmas season. Until then, respect the turkey just for a couple days.
All right, Alex, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
My final thoughts, 2020 has been a hell of a year. Thanksgiving should be one of those holidays where we actually stop and reflect on what we are thankful for. We've lost a lot of people this year. We've lost a lot of time, and it's been tumultuous between the politics, the death rate, and just our fantasy teams just being destroyed. Enjoy the time that you have with people. Enjoy the butt whooping and lashings that Detroit and Dallas are going to get. Enjoy the people around you. You can reach me on Twitter at ALXFLMNG. That's Alex Fleming. No vowels other than the A. The carousel. Either you're on or you're off. We will be off this week. It's Thanksgiving. Nobody wants to hear us talk for an hour about football when there's holidays, turkey, and shopping to do. Sports Arena. You can catch my show from last night, or you can catch some of the news that we're going to do later on tonight. Magic Perspective, NBA free agency happened. I wasn't ignoring it, and I'll be talking about it tonight. Skull King Sports with the man Ryan Skolrud and Scott Morganroth. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for having me as an addition. Oh, and Florida Sun Review, Central Florida's oldest black living newspaper. We've only been around for 90 years. We might be doing something right. You can go online and read some of my material if you'd like. I believe they're posting the paper this Wednesday. All my articles between Miami, Jacksonville, and Tampa. I also write about the teams that they play too. I'm a boring guy.
Can hardly tell. All right, Ryan, let everybody know how they can get a hold of you.
You can get a hold of me. Obviously, follow us on SkullKingSports.com, our main website, where we cover not only football, fantasy football, but we cover the kind of the arena of sports in general with some NBA, MLB, and some racing, including Formula One action on there. You can follow me on Twitter at Ryan Skolrud. You can follow Skull King at Skull King Sports. You can follow us on Instagram, Skull King Sports, as well as going on Facebook. We have multiple different fantasy pages, sports pages, and groups. Just look up Skull King Sports, and you will find a plethora of pages and everything to find the information you're looking for. You can also follow my fantasy football podcast on any major platform where you get your podcasts. We are also on YouTube where you can see it there. So,
all right, folks, I got to tell you, I'm doing this broadcast with a heavy heart. And the reason why I'm doing it with a heavy heart is I'm in Metro Detroit because my mother has been put on hospice. She doesn't have much time. This may be the last broadcast I do with her alive. I love you, Mom, very much. I've had you around nearly 58 years. I can only hope you can hang on. I was with her the last couple of days. I'm leaving my hotel right now to spend time with her and trying to squeeze every moment I can out of this whole situation. My brother currently is hospitalized with COVID-19 at the University of Michigan Hospital, and he's going through a tough time. And my Aunt Judy right now shattered her kneecap, and she's dealing with some issues at rehab. This is a hat trick for all the wrong reasons. But you know what? I have a strong passion for doing what we do. That's why I'm determined to do it no matter what the situation is. It's the right thing to do, is to entertain you folks out there. That's why we're doing this broadcast, and we're going to keep doing it no matter what, because that's what we're here to do. So I hope that everybody enjoys their family for Thanksgiving. And yes, 2020, good riddance. The sooner, the better. You want to get a hold of us? You can do so at, on Facebook and Instagram. South Florida Tribune Gets It Done. Twitter at Tribune South. Feel free to go ahead and follow us there. Again, that's Twitter at Tribune South. We have a YouTube channel. Please subscribe to that. South Florida Tribune Gets It Done. You can go to our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. You have all of our media distribution partners. You have our columns. You have all the broadcasts, the Motor City Monitor, and it's a great website that my wife Candy does a wonderful job. News, sports, weather, you name it, it's there. You can reach. So that's www.southfloridatribune.com. You can email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. You can catch up with me on LinkedIn, Scott Morganroth. If you want to go ahead and hear the audio version of the broadcast, we can do so through iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. So you have lots of different ways to listen to this broadcast. We encourage everybody to share the broadcast. We really enjoy working hard to bring in these broadcasts as well. So I couldn't be more proud of the two co-hosts I have. They're two great people. They have totally different personalities, what makes them genuinely great at what they do. And I just love fitting in with these two guys. I consider them as not only my colleagues, but my pals. But this is a tough year. Yeah, if the Lions lose to the Houston Texans, who cares? I have a bigger picture. I hope that I can spend time, because losing my mother is far bigger than a football game. It really is. A family member that's sick, far bigger than a football game or any sporting event. But we've got to do what we've got to do. So, Ryan, why don't you give the COVID message, please?
Guys, take care of yourselves and take care of those around you. As Alex always says, wash your hands. Wear your masks when you need to. Just be wise in what you're doing. Do your best to take, like I said, do your best to take care of yourself, take care of those around you, and stay safe.
The only thing I have to say, Mom, is I love you very much. Stick around as long as you can, but when you do pass away, I will always love you, and don't you ever forget that. I know you'll be listening to these broadcasts in heaven, but let's keep it going on earth for as long as we can. And I know that we're on real borrowed time. Hospice is not a good situation for a lot of you folks that have to deal with it. And I do want to make one other point, too, that I think is necessary. I am not ever going to endorse tobacco companies. My mom is currently suffering from COPD. I lost a grandfather when I was 10 years of age to lung cancer. So outside of the COVID message, folks, stay the heck away from cigarettes, any tobacco-related products. They're nothing but trouble. So on behalf of Alex Fleming, Ryan Skolrud, my name is Scott Morgan, Roth, the Motor City Madmouth, wishing everybody a happy Thanksgiving, and thank you for joining us here on Fantasy Football. God bless everybody, and we'll catch you the next time. Bye-bye.